Hello, welcome to the very first episode of the Darkside Digest. I'm Jeff Belanger. Think of me as your editor-in-chief, your reporter extraordinaire, covering all the headlines that you may have missed, probably because you weren't born yet. So we're going to take a deep dive in the work that I do for my podcast, New England Legends, and for Ghost Adventures on Discovery Plus and Travel Channel. I get to spend a lot of time in newspaper archives, and I'm always digging up strange stories from the past. And sometimes they're just so weird, I started saving them. And I thought it'd be kind of fun to do a live stream where I share some of those headlines again from the past. Weird stories. Sometimes they'll have a theme, sometimes they won't. This isn't going to be very long. I'm just going to present a couple of stories that I found very recently, and we'll talk about them a little bit. And then right off into the sunset. Not even sure how regularly we'll do these. Could be a couple times a week, could be once a week. I don't know. However, often some strange story comes up that I think is worth sharing, I will share it with you. Stories like this one right here, which comes from the Stockton enterprise in California. And it was April 26th, 1901 is the story. And this is about preventing a premature burial. Everybody's biggest fear, of course, is that you wake up, you're in a coffin, you're 6 feet below the ground, and you're not dead. Well, good news. Good news from way back when. There's a device that you can purchase to keep you from being buried alive. So here's the story. According to the Cincinnati Enquirer, practical demonstration was given recently in New York of a method of saving the lives of those prematurely buried. The system is the invention of a Count Carnicchio of Russia. Count Carnicchio's apparatus consists of a tube 4 inches in diameter, a box, and a few appliances for signaling. The tube is placed over an aperture in the coffin, and the other end of it appears above the surface of the ground, where it is surmounted by a box. Through the tube passes a rod, on the end of which, inside the coffin, is a ball. Now, the slightest movement of the body in the coffin is communicated to the rod, which in turn releases springs. The door of the hermetically sealed box flies open, and the bell rings. And a small signal ball rises above the grave, of course, to warn others, to a height of 6 feet. And then at night, a lamp is placed overhead. And in the event that the supposed dead recovering consciousness, there's a ray of reassuring light. How comforting. The attention of the watchman of the cemetery may also be attracted by a rocket, which is automatically discharged. Not bad. So should you find yourself below ground, you can have this apparatus and launch it, and someone will be right along to get you. I've worked on a couple of stories related to not just this device, but others like it. There were a bunch of patents filed over the years to keep you from being buried alive. And I think that was just amazing. Some of them just launched like a flag that stood up. Another one would be like a bell tied to the finger of the corpse, and the corpse would ring it, and they called it a dead ringer. Pretty weird. I know. On the ghostly front, this little ditty made the headlines right here. Here it is. This is coming from the St. Louis Globe Democrat, February 16th, 1889, but it's a story that takes place in Irwin, Pennsylvania. It's called Spooks and Spirits, and little articles like these make the news from time to time back then. Anyway, the story goes, the ghost made him skip. A number of Irwin, Pennsylvania boys were frightened almost to death by seeing what they declared to be a ghost near that town the other night. They say they saw a woman running along the top of the bank and then suddenly jump into the cut. At the distance from the jump to the cut is about 30 feet. They rushed up expecting to find the woman mangled and dead, but on arriving on the spot, she had mysteriously disappeared. Then a scare of such huge dimensions took possession of them that everyone's hat rose several inches above the head, and "let's get out of this" was the cry, and out they did get, making more steps to the minute and fewer to the mile than ever were made in that locality. So some kids saw a ghost in Irwin, PA, a woman that seemed to have fallen from a bank and was not seen again, so she must have been a ghost. That's the story, the whole story, and it made the news in St. Louis. So this was like the wire service back then, stuff that just kind of went around. That's the funny thing about the way ghosts used to be covered, even back 150 years ago. In the news, the reporters would either take it sort of seriously and matter of fact, like, hey, there was this sighting, this is what people say, or more tongue-in-cheek, like this one, or mocking. There's no such thing as ghosts. It's ridiculous. However, these folks here believe in it. Aren't they silly? Which is really kind of how the media covers the stories today as well. Now, sometimes back then, there was so much news to fit in newspapers, they only had room to put just the tiniest few words and really leave you wondering. And we're going to spend our last story on this one. Check this out. This is the February 14th, 1855 Buffalo Courier from Buffalo, New York. And here's the whole article in its entirety. A posthumous lecturer. The spirit of William Pitt, Earl of Chatham, delivered a lecture to some spiritualists in Syracuse a few days ago, which was so eloquent that the meeting, by resolution, thanked the ghost. I don't know what else to tell you on this. I found nothing else, just that. And I feel like they buried the lead at the very least. I feel like there must be so much more to this story, and I want to know it. But that's all we get. And that's somehow sometimes how it goes when it comes to the news. So that's what I'm doing. These, again, aren't going to be that long. I'm going to be, sharing these weird stories from the past as I find them and just do these quick sort of hits as a live stream because I think it's fun. And sometimes I just laugh and laugh, or sometimes I just cock my head and go, wow, how strange. And today, these are the kind of things that get posted on social media. Back then, we had newspapers. And so a blast from the past. Check out my podcast if you're into more weird stories, New England Legends, wherever you get your podcast. And of course, follow me. Check me out. My website is jeffbelanger.com. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And until next time, stay weird.